What's going on, bench warmers? We're back with another Zoom episode. Just making sure we get out these episodes to you. We're getting together on Zoom. My name's Diego, and I'm joined by John, aka Gat, and Marco, our crack producer, in his mini studio there. We got quite a bit to talk about. There's a lot that happened in the weekend and in the midweek for this double game week 34 for all your fantasy heads. But I do want to start it off with a quick question for you guys. And that is, we're talking about a little bit off air in terms of, heirs to the throne. And there is a very famous man called Benjamincito. You have a godfather who is Messi, right?
Yep.
His dad is Kun
Agüero.
And was it the in-law?
No, his grandfather.
Oh, his grandfather. Oh, Jesus.
The one and only Maradona.
His grandfather being the one and only Maradona. So you're Benjamin, and I'm trying to ask you guys, if you're, let's say in a multiverse, you were born, you wake up, open your eyes, you see Kun Agüero, you see Maradona there, you see Messi. Would you be feeling the pressure to be the next man up, the next footballing star? How you feel about that, Gat?
Hell yeah, there's pressure. Absolutely. Because no matter what, people are always going to look at you like, oh, if you're the son of so and so, or if so and so is your godfather, you must see them all the time. So you must be getting tips and tricks you must be getting private lessons and all this nonsense. So like, hell yeah, there's going to be pressure.
But there's a conversation. There's a conversation though, and the phrase has been popular recently of Nepo babies, and whether or not these specific footballers may be getting some favoritism based on their last name. What do you think, Marco? You becoming a footballer?
Based on my last name, let's say if I was a famous player? No. I mean, that's a tough one.
Let's say there's Fish and you're Fish Jr.
I'm Fish Jr. If it's Fish, I'll do it.
if your last name is Reese?
If my last name would be Reese and I was starting off and I could ball, I'd do it.
Just take mom's last name and then continue.
I don't know that guy.
You know freaking Spanish people. We all have like 5 or 6 different names. I don't, but everyone else has like 5 or 6 different names.
I don't either. I only have 2. No, I think there's definitely a lot of pressure walking in when you carry a household name on your back. I've seen it in different players, specifically with with the Real Madrid players. Was Llorente. There was a older, I can't remember his last name. The father's name, but he was a big soccer player within Real Madrid, and then he had 2 kids, and both wound up leaving because, well, it didn't fit. Other ones, Zidane.
Say how it is, Marco. They couldn't take the heat.
Yeah, other ones were Zidane's kids. And so Zidane and I can't remember the other one, and neither of them could fit the bill. They were both at Real Madrid, and neither of them could fit the bill.
That's right. Where is Enzo Zidane? I'm curious about that.
I'll look it up right now, but I don't think he plays a smaller team, I think.
Well, we do have the references for the Beckham kids. Brooklyn looks like he's pretty much trying to live up to Pop's name. Romeo, I think, isn't one of them dating? This is all just coming off the top of my head. One of them's dating someone famous. I had
married to an actress. I believe she did. What show did she do? It was a motel. It was a motel movie show.
Maybe while you're looking up where Enzo ended up, maybe if Gat can pull up who Romeo Beckham is cuddling up to during the off season. But that's a very interesting question, man. Just to see if it'd be interesting to ask them if there is specific pressure, if they're encouraged just to be their own person. The biggest example that comes to mind is Robin Van Persie with his son Shaquille. I remember in an interview he was saying that he was encouraging him just to if this is what he wants, he's got to follow it all the way. And obviously he's going to be there for support, which I think is fantastic, especially if you have the last name, if you have the reference, if you have the source for advice and for tips on your form. So is Enzo still playing, Marco?
He
Were we
is.
able to
He's
find out?
playing in
like
Fuenlabrada.
Spain's like second division or something like that.
Yes.
Spain's second division. And what about Romeo Beckham? What's the intel on Romeo Beckham?
Mia Reagan.
I have no clue who that is, but I just said
Apparently they split up and they're rekindling things as of late last
Mm.
year.
Well, I don't want to turn the pod into a pseudo
gossip.
football TMZ, but
TMZ.
you get the drift. You get the drift. We're gonna jump right into the Premier League review though, because there was some crazy results, there was some crazy action, and some, I guess, lack of it. But we'll get into that. First one on the docket, guys: Arsenal v Chelsea. And I had said it before. That's something that I'm going to address afterwards because I've been catching heat, but there's no shame. There's no shame. I don't feel no shame for that. This one, however, there should be someone that feels shame, and that's Frank Lampard losing 3-1 to Arsenal away at the Emirates. I did watch the game. It feels like everybody knew that this was going to be a win for Arsenal. And more importantly, it was going to be another Chelsea loss because they looked completely devoid of any inspiration, any idea, any footballing know-how, no tactics, zero vibes. I'm going in on Chelsea because there's one thing I do want to address before we get to the bias. There is one name that stood out, and I wanted to bring this guy up to you, Marco. Hopefully you had some background on him. And I was like, who is that? 6'2", I think, or maybe I'm wrong. 6'4". I know he looked enormous. And this is Jakub Kiwior or Kiwior. He's a Polish international, it seemed. Young kid. And I thought he looked great. What's the info you got on this young center back?
So he is a youngster. If I'm mistaken, he came in transfer window, winter transfer window, if I'm mistaken. He has had barely any appearances because he came to be, if I'm mistaken, Gabriel's replacement. The second. And he hasn't had many opportunities so far. He had, I think his first one was when we were still in the Europa, and he was taken out around halfway through the second half because I think it could have been the game that we were kicked out of. I can't remember exactly.
Against Sporting.
Yes, I think that was the one. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
But he's good. It's just that he's a little raw. He has an amazing bright future. It's just that
better than Holding, man. I'm gonna say it right now. I'm gonna say it just like that. He looked much more confident than Holding, despite the fact that there were a few moments that we have to recognize. It's against a Chelsea team that has no bite, no bark, toothless, if you want to say that. But man, if he's been there this time, if he's been training, if he's been available for selection, why not start him ahead of Holding in these last few games, especially against the draws I'm talking about mostly?
Yeah. So the question has been placed out there. A lot of the fans have asked that exact same question, and I want to say, and Ateta's is more of a confidence over the other. There's some confidence with Holding versus the new kid that hasn't proved himself yet. Holding, at least you know what to expect with him. What you said when you mentioned that size, his height, they have it in centimeters, so help me out with this one. It's 189 centimeters. I believe that's 6.3.
I got you. Yeah.
So he is tall. And going back to today's game, why he did a phenomenal job, in my opinion. He's 23 years old. Should he have been given the chance? Yes.
Yeah, why not?
But the problem is what had happened if instead of tying those games would have lost them? how much pressure would it put it on that one kid?
Yeah. About 6'2"
What's
and a
it?
half. 6'2" and a
Okay.
half.
Almost 3. Okay. So I would have liked to see him at least in one of the 3 games that we tied. But Arteta decided to go with Holding. His reasons, he had his reasons. He finally gave the kid a chance now that we're not fighting for the title anymore.
Hey, don't say that.
I
I wouldn't
mean,
say
we're
that,
not fighting
man.
for, I mean, we have to continue winning, of course, but it's not in our hands now. It's in the hands of Man City. We can't say, oh, we're gonna win it. It's on them to lose it now because we already lost it. But yeah, again, going back, I would have liked to see him at least in one of the 3 ties, but Arteta did what he needed to do or what he thought was best, and Holding it was, man. But I mean, we have a phenomenal bright center back in our team, and it's good to know that moving forward, there's a possibility that the Newcastle game and anything else that comes along, it will be this kid playing instead of Holding.
That's fair. I don't want to put too much pressure on him either. It's pretty easy to have a good game against an Aubameyang that had 7 touches and 4 of them were kickoffs. So that was an incredible stat, by the way. I could not believe that.
Did he play the 90 minutes? How long did he play?
No,
he was axed, bro. He was axed. Let me see. And I have the actual gamepad here.
I was waiting. I was waiting for the stories of Aubameyang and Mudryk scoring.
He was yanked off at halftime, bro. He yanked off at halftime for Kai Havertz. I don't get it. I don't get it. You have Sterling, you and it's a perfect segue onto someone who I think should be catching more heat from the media, more heat from the pundits, more heat from the league. Lampard with his 6th consecutive loss in the Premier League. They have nothing to play for. They have nothing in their way. There's nothing else they need to focus on. And they keep putting out these stinkers, absolute stinkers week after week. Yes, we do have to recognize that Arsenal, for the majority of the season, has been the best team in the league. And they're still going up against that. But you start with a front line of Sterling, Aubameyang, and Madueke, and you end up changing that basically so you can end up with a line of Kai Havertz, Hakim Ziyech, and then Sterling was taken off for Gallagher. Like, what is this guy even? I don't know what they're playing at. The stat with the kickoffs, and literally it's just because since Arsenal had scored those 3 first half goals, and they're obviously they're the visitors. That's 4 kickoffs right there. And there were several times where they tried to put in a ball to Aubameyang too far. He tried to control it. Timberland, like he got the Tims on the Timberland touch. Yeah, why aren't they cooking Lampard how they did my boy? And yes, I'm gonna be straight up. This is a strong inkling of bias because I know for a fact if it was Rangnick, if it was Solskjaer, if it was Arteta at the beginning of his career at Arsenal, they would be absolutely mauling them in the media. And it's crickets for Super Frank. What's the deal with that?
I honestly think they just know that this is a shit season. This is a shit team. Let's just get to next season, and then let bygones be bygones. I think is so they're just trying to sweep it under the rug because they just know they're bad. I don't see any other reason for it.
I mean, we had Gary Neville and Carragher interviewing Eric Ten Hag after losing the first 2 games of the season and basically grilling him on freaking TV. What are your tactics? How are you going to right this ship? What are you going to do next? And it's like, why aren't they doing that for someone who's come in, inherited a really expensive squad, and doesn't know how to even deal with that? Marco, if you told somebody, hey, listen, this is all my expensive equipment at home, and you see that every week there's something else that he breaks, you're going to keep him there?
No, I would have gotten rid of him already.
Why haven't they? That's my question to you.
Because they don't want to start. It's hard to replace something that's already broken. And they would prefer to just start fresh with the new season, like Gat said. And the expectation that he coming in just to close off the season, what are you gonna tell them? Oh, you're doing shit. We're gonna sack you. Well, sack me, motherfucker. There's 4 more games, and me going away, it's still gonna the team is still gonna be shit. So, or keep me or send me away, but nothing's gonna change.
Here's my counterpoint to that. Why wouldn't you put someone who could utilize these games that he's had so far to actually recognize what the faults are in the team? We know he's not staying. Frank Lampard is not staying next season. He's not going to be their permanent manager next season. So why wouldn't you have someone there that can already, even if they're taking L's left and right?
Because you don't want to start off a season, start off your journey with Chelsea on such a bad note. And right now, it's hard to like. I mean, there is a couple of big coaches out there.
I feel like
nobody's gonna want to do that right now. Nobody's gonna say, "Hey, yeah, let's say fucking Zidane," just for hypothetically. I'm like, "Oh, Zidane, come over and take." No, why would I want to take? Like,
and then
I was like, because there's gonna be better teams out there next season.
No,
like no, hangs up. There's gonna be better teams out there next season that might have a better chance than Chelsea. And Chelsea's broken from the top, man. Like from the minute it was sold, from the minute that this American owner came in and decided to just shit on them by giving them all the money that they wanted and not consider buying the right players, just the most expensive players. I think it's broken from there down. It doesn't matter what coach comes in. They have to fix the way that they're doing business first.
I heard one take that I want to bring up with you guys, which I think is absolute, like an absolute crock. The quote goes, Frankie's doing it because he loves the club.
No, it's money.
He's not playing for free. He's not Messi playing for Barcelona for free. They got to get paid. If he showed up, okay, and of course, this isn't realistic because at the time, I also advocated that it was absolutely dumb for people to expect Messi to play at Barcelona for free just so he could stay and help them balance their books. It's not his fault. It's not his responsibility. But if you're going to claim that Frank Lampard came in because for the love of the club, come on, man.
You do that at the end of your career when you already accomplished everything as a player. As a coach, you don't want to go to a dying club. You want to build and become better. And to this is, I think it's money wise, man. He knew that whatever he did, it's not going to be on him. The team was already broken. The team didn't look like it was going to be in the top 5 or 6 or 10. All technically he has to do is keep him out of relegation.
Yeah, he's steering.
Which I don't think he's going to accomplish.
Steering a sinking ship.
I think we will come to the end of season. I don't think they're going to be relegated, but they're going to be right there in that window of there's a possibility brewing around that that they might lose or they might be relegated. And they're gonna kick it off like they did with when Leicester City won the Premier League and they just shitted on Spurs. They just kind of like woke up and like, oh yeah, we have a team, somewhat of a team to win games. It's just that we've been lazy and couldn't figure ourselves out or couldn't get out of our own way. But yeah, I think specifically with Chelsea, I think it's gonna come down to like the last game or two. So when they actually see they're going to be doing something.
The issue with that, unfortunately, and you guys both know because we talked about it last week, their fixture run is awful. The last 3 games they have is against City, United, and Newcastle. They're going to have to fight. Yes. Yep. They don't make them like they do, Didier. They don't make them like they used to no more.
So you said City. So it's City, Newcastle, and who else?
Their fixture run is Bournemouth, Forest, City, United, Newcastle.
Okay, and then 2 of them are fighting to go to remain in the top 4.
Yep.
With Liverpool coming in behind, there's only Liverpool is 4 points behind you guys. By then, it could be 6, it could be 2. We don't know.
It could be 6, it could be 2. That's right. With the loss today, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
And you
you're
have
screwed
Bournemouth.
because one of the three, one might be champion by that time. We don't know. Most likely though. And the other two are trying to stay on top four. And then you come along trying to stay up above 17th place.
It's gonna
I know
be
there was.
rough.
I remember seeing something on Twitter where there is a hypothetical universe out there where
Where they can get relegated.
Chelsea could land in, I think it was 19th if they lose
Yes,
out
look,
and everybody
they're
wins.
the 18th place has 30 points versus them that have 39.
39.
They
It's 3 games.
everybody has 34 games except for Chelsea has 33. Because I believe they have a Brighton game, or I don't know, can't remember exactly
Yeah,
which
our
one it
game.
is.
The United game, they have to
The
make.
Okay,
United
the
game.
United game. They can lose, technically lose 3 games and end up in the bottom 16, 17 with no problem.
It's the multiverse. Let's see what happens. 6
I'll be
losses
funny.
in a
I'll be
row.
hilarious.
We are
Imagine,
one game.
imagine spending, how much did they spend? Over 500 million
Over 600.
and
Six.
getting relegated. How much loss is that?
Incredible.
And you have to keep these expensive ass players that are expecting at least Premier League competition, and you send them down to the championship and pay their wages, and you're losing the income of being in the Premier League.
That's rough, man.
That's
Listen,
Mudryk is gonna come out and saying, "Oh, I never wanted Chelsea anyway."
And bro, the amount of players that they're gonna have to loan out to be able to cover those wages.
I think, listen, I don't think it's the issue of the coach. I don't think it's really, it's much more deep rooted. These players definitely don't work with one another. I've heard it, and I've heard the argument about Enzo. So shout out to the person I was talking to about that, about Enzo Fernandez and him warranting freaking 85 fucking stacks for doing nothing. He's had 13 starts since he signed for Chelsea. He's had 2 wins against Leeds and Leicester. 2. And out of those games that he started, he's kept a clean sheet 3 times. And 2 of those times were 0-0 draws. What is he doing on the pitch? What is he doing on that pitch for that much money? You could argue maybe, okay, they're not scoring, but then 2 of those losses that he's had have been 1-0 against Wolves, a 1-0 loss against Wolves, a 1-0 loss against Southampton. You're not going to be able to keep, as a defensive midfielder, like, okay, maybe he's not putting in goals and assists. And I know I'm definitely putting up my agenda banner right now against someone like Enzo, but you could say the same for Mudryk. You could say the same for Sterling. You could say the same for Aubameyang. You could say the same for all of these guys. It's a complete shambles. And we got 1 game, boys. 1 game until we can unfurl the nice little banner 007 for Super Frankie Lampard, with 7 games played, 0 wins, 0 draws, 0 points. Let's see how it happens. But looking how things fall, looking how the chips fall, you have to. This is why I'm telling you, Marco, you can't be giving up the fight. Gat and I are saying you can't give up the fight until it's not over, till it's over. Because that's what Liverpool said when they played Tottenham Hotspur at home. 4-3. An incredible, like, I'm going to ask you guys yes or no. Would you put, let's say you have to nominate 3 games. Obviously, we're not going to do that now. I think that's a conversation for a later episode. 3 games to nominate as game of the season. Would you put this up there?
Yeah, honestly, I would put it up there as at least a contender. Yeah.
It's funny because, like, for me, Liverpool Spurs have had the worst game out there, like the most boring game I've ever seen in my life, and a very, very entertaining game. The worst one being the Champions League final, and the best one being this past match where 2 shit teams go head to head, and one basically almost fucks up completely by. I mean, I can't talk too much shit because it happened to us already, but being 2 up and allowing it was 2 up, I believe, and allowing them to catch up, tie, and just out of last seconds, man, just one small error. But yeah, it's a hilarious game. But it was phenomenal to watch. Don't get me wrong.
It was great. It was great because it looked like it definitely looked like Liverpool were going to run away with it. You know, I was freaking sweating because I only had fantasy wise, I only had Salah on my team. I was hoping that the damage wouldn't be too great with the likes of Jota and Luis Diaz, and they actually Alexander Arnold with an assist, Curtis Jones, Gakpo being involved with an assist, Luis Diaz getting a goal, Salah getting his penalty. You know, Harry Kane with the typical comeback goal, pulling it again, and I've said it, and I'll continue to say it, dragging this team from the collar across the finish line because he doesn't want the embarrassment from what Spurs are doing. I thought, and I'm gonna be very, very real with you, I thought, wow, they actually came back, and I was like, the irony that I was shitting on Richarlison last week about putting a tenner for him not scoring during the season, for him to end the season on 0 goals and seeing what the payout would be for that. And so just like, it's so funny. I don't understand what goes on in Richarlison's head. He scores off of a really, like, I would say honestly, a lucky deflected header into the ground.
It was another Ronaldo situation. Like, did his hair like touch it? Like, did he actually hit it?
Yeah. It bounces just over, like right off of Alisson's reach, right over his outstretched arm, and then he goes off. And this is where like the show starts. 99 seconds of complete euphoria for the Tottenham Hotspur fans, taking off his shirt, pounding his chest, shushing everybody, going over to his teammates. Sonny, Heung-min Son coming over, doing his little pigeon dance together. Yeah, let's celebrate like in FIFA. And then the kickoff glitch. Right after Lucas Moura. Putting it like that's like, I don't like, and the even funnier is that the last game Luka Moura was involved, his mistake, his red card led them to drop points. And then this one, it was a relatively innocent play. Like, I don't know why he thought it was okay to pass it back. Like, the game's over at that point. It's done. Richarlison scored in the 93rd minute. Boot the ball out. Get rid of it. You did it. Like, you did it. Don't Spurs it up. And they Spursed it the only way Spurs can. A ball back pass right into the path of an onrushing Diogo Jota that finishes it, and it's done. And then the camera, God bless the cameraman, because he got that juicy reaction clip of Richarlison just like smiling to himself, like, damn, I'm the biggest jackass on this pitch right now, aren't I?
And that's another time. So before, with the whole Conte drama, he scores and shushes Conte before not playing him. That goal gets rolled offside. And now he does this, gets yellow carded for taking his shirt off, thinking he tied it, and then they lose anyway. It was a point. It was all pointless. It was great.
I got a stat for this one too, man. Over the course of the season, Richarlison now has more yellow cards for celebrating than he has scored goals. One. It was for nothing. Like, that's like the funniest thing is that that's so Spursy that it was for absolutely nothing for them to go on. And yeah, sure. I'm not saying that they weren't merited in celebrating it. You're down 3-0 and you fought back when a lot of teams were like, oh, I was feeling pressure because I was like, damn, United looked bad dropping a 2-0 lead. And Liverpool going to walk all over them. So I was like, I'm going to be straight up. I was smiling in my head. I was like, oh, all right, cool. Like, we weren't that terrible. But listen, Lucas Moura, secret Liverpool fan in disguise, giving them the win. Looking at the run-in, though, for these two teams, and that's what I want to use to segue onto the last point for this Prem action. And some of the discussion is going to turn to the bottom of the table because both of these teams, Liverpool and Spurs, they were pretty close on the table. And now with the Brighton win today, Liverpool's on 59 points, Brighton on 55, and Spurs on 54. They both have pretty favorable fixture runs for the last 4 games of the season. Palace, Villa, Brentford, and Leeds for Spurs. I think that's pretty doable for them. And then the last 4 for Liverpool, it looks very similar. Brentford, Leicester, Villa, and Southampton. I think Liverpool's fixture run is definitely more favorable because they're playing what 2 out of the bottom 4 in Leicester and Southampton. So, question really quickly, really easily. For that, it looks like the fight is going to be for that 5th and 6th spot. Who finishes higher, Spurs or Klopp's men?
I think Liverpool do.
Klopp's men, I think so too.
I think Liverpool do. I'm telling you right now, Josue, I'm sorry, even though you've already rescinded your Spurs subscription for the rest of the season, apparently. But Spurs ain't winning much of these last few games.
Yeah, I mean, they even have playing against Villa, which is tied in points with them.
Yeah, I
And
think Liverpool definitely have a much more favorable fixture run with a better gelling team at the moment. I mean, you say it every single week. Harry Kane is the one that's dragging this team to the finish line. Is he really going to drag it? Does he have enough left to drag them 4 more times against all teams, maybe except for, I mean, even Brentford, you can throw them in there. They're all still fighting for something. Palace still aren't guaranteed safety, so they can't take their foot off the gas. Villa have been amazing under Emery. United were the first team since Emery took over that were able to shut them down and not allow them to score. And Villa's playing at home. That's going to be a tough one. Brentford are still pushing for some European competition, and Leeds just brought on Big Sam to try to keep them up, and they're home.
Yeah.
It's not
Plus,
as favorable as at least
plus
in my opinion.
you're comparing them to a Liverpool that finally got, at least attacking wise, their players back.
they got a lot of players
They
back.
And they're
went
finally getting their
without.
shit together.
I mean, they might have to default for the next 4 games, default to the old style Leeds of scoring more goals and then what they get scored on. But they have their attackers back. They have Jota, they have Luis, and then of course they have Salah, Nunez, and Gakpo and all that stuff. So their attack and their goal scoring players are there now, so they can rotate at least the top of them. So I see Liverpool, man. Just I mean I if I were you guys, I would worry about Liverpool.
Oh, definitely. I would definitely.
I can definitely see Liverpool taking your and or Newcastle spot, even though Newcastle does have 2 more points to you guys as of today.
That's
But
right.
you guys have the same amount of games to play, so
Relegation teams are the wild card here. That's like
yes.
that's the defining factor for both teams and for everybody else in the league because, like Gat had just mentioned, Big Sam getting the call up, rung him up. He over here in the Maldives, getting his feet wet in the water with a nice little mimosa in hand. They need Big Sam back at the helm. How much money are they throwing at this guy? First of all, how much is he getting to actually take over, Marco?
So they threw 500,000 just to come and coach them for the next 4 games?
4 games. That's it.
Yeah, 4 games.
But there's a big caveat in there, isn't there, Marco?
There is a hell of a caveat there. If he keeps them in Premier League, he gets 2.5 mil just because he kept them on in Premier League. The big status, the big league, the best in the world, some would say.
Can you imagine making close to 3 million in a month?
That's nuts.
3 million.
I make like a 1,000 times less than that, or more than that.
1 million times less than that. Like shit.
1 million times less than that in 1 month.
And this is why we're telling you, Marco, you can't be given. Listen, I'll get into it because I've been thinking about it since yesterday. This is one of the things that we're also going to mention, a specific Nordic bastard. But anyway, you can't give up the hope until the very end because City's next rival is Leeds United. And if Big Sam can get this team organized to even scrap out a draw, that changes everything.
So, and this is a big if, right?
It is a big if.
So no, what you're saying, these are big ifs, and Eric or even Demi might consider me jinxing this, but so the last 2 games are the ones that I mean, the Leeds one, of course, it's what is it called? The new coach bounce back or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
new
Manager bounce.
Yeah.
The manager bounce with Leeds. But if my opinion, if anybody could possibly do damage to City, is Brighton. but that is not until game week 30. Well, I think it's 37. I think the last two games for Man City is Brighton and then Brentford. They close off with Brentford. Brentford, I think that could be another team, but my hopes are with Brighton. Now, of course, it's hopes. I'm not sure, but Brighton, if they want some type of European competition or even fight for that fourth place, which would be freaking phenomenal. How much of a twist could it be that he takes Liverpool and Man United spot for this season's and for Champions League? That would be crazy.
That would be crazy. That'd be an incredible achievement. It really would.
So,
I don't think,
but yeah, that's the team.
I wouldn't look at it that way. If you're in terms of it being a jinx, if you're looking at things objectively, and we're just looking at City's like their run in, obviously the result that they just had against West Ham, they've now, what was it, 8 games, 8 wins, 8 consecutive wins, 9 wins, 3, 6. Yeah, 9 consecutive wins since a 1-1 draw against Forest back in February. And we were talking about that in another episode too. When they close out the season, they close out strong and they do it hard. They do have in between, here's the other thing, Champions League. Champions League is coming up against Real Madrid in the midweek after this Leeds game. Is Pep going to rotate? Is Pep going to need to rest specific players? Is he going to make sure that he gets these 3 points and risk those players for Real Madrid? It's a huge what if. Huge. But looking at it, even in a positive light, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to say there is a chance for Leeds to be a thorn in their side, to be a speed bump for City in this run-in, especially with Big Sam at the helm. Yeah, if someone told you that you had to keep up the squad with only 4 games remaining, and you're Leeds United, and I'm looking at right now I'm going to look at the games that they have left. Obviously, it's not very...
They are tough.
It's not very forgiving. It's City, then Newcastle, West Ham, and then you close out at home against Spurs.
I think it's too little too late.
That's it.
I think it's too little too late. I mean, you can't blame them for making the move that they did because that's what he's known for. I mean, just look at, his most recent attempt at it was with West Brom, was it 2 years ago, and unfortunately that was the first time he's been relegated. He couldn't happen it. But before that, he's done it repeatedly. Blackburn, Sunderland, Crystal Palace, they were all bottom of the table, or bottom half of the table anyway, and in relegation, and he was able to keep them up. So it makes sense that they're going to go for someone like Big Sam to try to keep them up. But with the fixtures they have left and the condition that they're in, there's just too little too late, in my opinion. I would love to see Leeds stay up because they have some really nice players that I enjoy watching, and they used to have an entertaining system before they started letting managers go left and right. But I think it's too little too late.
No, I think they'll accomplish it.
You think they'll do it? I want to hear that. Let's. I
think Big Sam will do it.
I mean, they're guaranteed to win against Spurs because it's Spurs, but it's the other.
There's 3 points right there. Just to put that out there. No, I mean nothing's guaranteed in this world, but I do have faith that Leeds have the capacity to stay at least one more season in a top flight. They fought so much and so hard. I believe this is the 3rd season being back in Premier League, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they have the quality and the capacity to remain in the Premier League at least for another season. The 3 Americans will put their captain, their Avengers uniform, and and keep that team afloat. Well, at least that's what I'm thinking.
They do have 3 very important players out: Stuart Dallas, Tyler Adams, and Sinisterra, which has been probably, I think the latter 2 have probably been 2 of the more crucial cogs in this machine for Leeds. I think it's interesting just to see the comparison. They're just above Forest in 17th, purely off of goal difference, right? And if I remember correctly, I remember that might not even be the case because it's head to head. Didn't they get rid of goal difference in the league, something like that, in like 2019? about like
Uh,
position. I remember reading that off of the tweet for the multiverse where Chelsea gets relegated. Like they would basically if you can maybe check that for me, Gat. If the next tiebreaker after points, if it's head to head and not goal differential. Because I think they enacted that, and I also remember seeing a video about it. They enacted that in 2019, and they were talking about how if they had that before, it would have prevented the city title, blah 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 blah, all that stuff. But you can check on that. They need, however, Leeds need at least I would say 5 points to be able to stay up, and to basically leapfrog Leicester for safety. I think it's an interesting ask. I the Avengers uniforms. I like that one. I like that one. They desperately need a win though, and if it's going to be, I think out of the bottom sides, if we look at the table, just one last time at the bottom three, Southampton, Everton, and Forest. I think maybe Leeds could have maybe they have the secret sauce with Big Sam. Maybe Big Sam is going to bring the secret sauce in to try to keep them afloat. Because Forest, I think Forest looked disjointed. Everton, I feel like they also look very deflated. Southampton might have just given it up. Although we did see clearly that they put up a fight against Arsenal. They have to be doing that again. It's just I love seeing the relegation battle at the end of the season, especially in the Prem, because they put everything. Those players put everything into it. So, do you have an update for the tiebreaker, Gat, as far as like the position?
I can't find anything to
so
dispute the goal difference.
yeah, so as of right now, what I see, this is an article from September 20th, 2021. As of right now, to summarize, is by points, goal difference, goal scored, head to head points, head to head away, goal scored, and playoff.
Yeah, there's an article that I found on the Prem website, but I don't see a byline. I don't see a date or anything, but it does say that goal difference is next.
Okay, so then maybe I saw something that was that was making a reference to something else. In that case, we can forget about it. If
So
it's
then, so
so
how about this then
differential,
for a question? If you're Leeds, if you're Big Sam in this upcoming game, it's City, for crying out loud. Do you just go into it and treat this as damage control because of goal differential? And
I
just
mean, they got
try to not get smashed and try to keep it at 3 or 4 goals?
listen, man. They technically have 6 to give. No, we're even more 8. They got 8 goals. They got an 8 goal cushion against Forest, and they also can rely on the fact that Forest have to play a 6-pointer against Southampton. Then they play Chelsea, who's going to want to prove something, and then they have Arsenal and Palace. So I think they're pretty much in the same boat. I wouldn't go. I would tell them to go for it. If I were Big Sam and you're posing me that question, I'd be like, of course he's the one that has the mojo. So I don't know how he's going to be able to do it, but I'd imagine he'd be like, all right, go for it. Go at this team. They have a much more important game in midweek. They're not going to be focusing on you. Go for it. Catch them by surprise. Hit them fast. We saw Pep rotate Ederson out of nowhere during that game with West Ham. He played Alvarez. He's it's gonna be tough. Even I'm even the reason why I'm getting stuck on my words is because I'm already thinking of the freaking headaches for fantasy when it comes to picking City players. But that's enough on the relegation teams. That's wrapping it up for what we're gonna highlight on the Prem action this week and this weekend. Of course, there was a lot more results that happened that we're not glossing over or trying to skip anything out, but just so that we can make sure that everything is concise and we talk about things that we can get some more discussion out of. Palace beating West Ham 4-3, Brighton with a complete wipeout of Wolves 6-0.
With like
Newcastle
half their stars on the bench for that game.
Yes, and that was crazy that they hadn't started March, they hadn't started Mitoma, they hadn't started
Caicedo, McAllister.
Alistair, and they still romped them 6-0. You mentioned Gat earlier. United blanking Villa at home 1-0 for that win. And then on the turnaround for the games that needed to be made up, we saw a heartbreaking, which I think it's fair and I think it's deserved. Brighton getting not because the penalty being in question, but for them actually putting the effort on the pitch. Brighton getting the better of United with a 95th minute penalty, very very late on off a Luke Shaw handball in the box. An unfortunate hand that he recognized afterwards. In the post match, he shouldn't have had up at all or extended. Very easy penalty to call. I wanted to ask you guys, can we also, I did ask you about game of the season. Can we put Brighton in the conversation for top 3 teams of this season?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
And
you
with with a second half Villa in close fourth
in
or
close
fifth.
fourth.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that De Zerbi has done a ridiculous job. The fact, and I think that Wolves game is probably the bigger statement, that he's able to rotate his players, bench. He knows that they have a lot of games still to make up in quick succession. Looking at it fantasy wise, also Brighton players are the ones that have the most games and double game weeks coming up still, as compared to the rest of the league. The way he's been able to manage it, we saw that he put Caicedo as a right back today, which worked out absolutely well for them. And he's got this Buonanotte kid, the Enciso kid. It's an incredible job. So a shout out to Brighton and their
I've
fans.
said it. I've said it before. I've said it before to you guys. If assuming they keep De Zerbi, which I mean I'm hoping they do, and they have a big summer, like I would be afraid of Brighton next season.
Yeah, and that's
I,
if they keep those players. I don't think so though.
that's
Well, I
that's
mean,
I feel like it's gonna be like the Ajax of what 2020,
yeah, but like
1920.
so we what? McAllister's already rumored and linked to go to Liverpool. So what? He was benched during that 6-0 smacking the Wolves anyway. Do they really need him at the end of the day?
Do you
If they
think?
get
Do you
if
think
they
that?
get the
Hold
money,
on.
if De Zerbi gets support, I'm afraid of that team.
Do you think that he did that this weekend to show that, okay, even if you guys rid me of these players, I can still get it done? That's a tinfoil hat right there. I put that on. I would definitely put that on. That's
And
a
this is
big
all
statement to make as a
this is all still there. Evan Ferguson is still injured. Their main
right.
he's
Hey,
going to be their guy
when
unless
you
they go out and
have a
get somebody else.
legend, when you have a living legend like Wele on your team, bro, you don't got to worry about nothing. Danny Welbeckino has got it down pat at the front. Don't worry about that. I think that's incredible. Frank Lampard, eat your heart out. You could rotate your starting players and still get incredible results. De Zerbi, I think definitely, and this Brighton team definitely among the top 3 for team of the season. I think so.
Yeah, somehow Brighton were able to get rid of Potter and still upgrade. I don't
Yeah,
know
and
how.
still,
I don't
and
know
now
how.
Potter's, which of course, with all due respect to Potter, Potter is now at the Maldives taking Big Sam's spot. He kept the beach chair warm for him instead of the bench. Off of the bench though, and into the streets of Napoli, the Napolitani were out celebrating their first Serie A title in 30 years since 1990 after a draw against Udinese today. Chucky Lozano putting out a video celebrating in the dressing room. The Napoli fans literally venerating Osimhen like he's a god. Which, by the way, there was a clip,
Which
and
he is.
I mentioned it to you guys off air. There was a video of Maradona's son on a little moped with his like little helmet and stuff, and people like reaching out, grabbing his hand, like caressing his face, like if they wanted some of his greatness and footballing prowess to rub off on them. I thought that was pretty incredible scenes. But that's a huge shout out to the team in Naples getting it done. I think I'm. I'll pose you guys this question because I'm conflicted. Can we take Serie A seriously after they gave Juventus back their points?
Uh,
You both made the same face.
I want to say yes, because
exactly,
that has nothing to do with the
it has
fight
nothing to
and
do with the result
what.
at the end of the day.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with what Napoli, what Inter, what AC Milan, what Roma, all these teams have been doing to fighting and to make the series the league more interesting for all of us to watch, because for how long was just Juve and that's it. But we finally start seeing the Serie A being interesting again.
Finally, not only do we have a new champion, but we have pretty much a rework of their top four.
Yes, and we have two of the best teams playing against each other in a semifinal, which they're not even going to have to leave a town because they're going to be playing in the same stadium both games, which is the Inter and the AC Milan semifinal for Champions League. So I think it's more of the heads of the league that are more of a little more shitty than anything else. But no, I wouldn't take away from from the league. I think the league has fought a lot to get to where they're at, and I think they deserve it. And kudos to Napoli, man. I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them that they were able to finally win their league. I know that they were very close in the past, points away, but it took them just a couple more years, and they finally accomplished it, and I'm happy. It sucks because they're out of the Champions League, but you know what? Fuck it. They won something, which is important.
They won it, and that is important. I think that's crazy. It's. I'm looking at the table right now, which is why I made that comment. Napoli, Lazio, Juventus, Inter. I remember when my very first FIFA game was FIFA 2001, and for some reason, just because like aside from playing with United, of course, I had an Italian teacher who was a big Roma fan, and so just to be able to practice with this teacher, I thought it was going to be interesting to have that like bantering back and forth and practice the language just by following a team like Lazio. So and for a long time they were absolutely terrible after the turn of the early 2000s. So just to see that, it's very interesting. Atalanta also, they were flying high. I remember scoring goals for fun in Champions League, and then they had that big slump where they were at the bottom, uh, languishing at the bottom of the Serie A. And I'm looking right now, just because I wanted to see what the lineup was for a team like Lazio in 2000 and 2001. And dude, Diego Simeone, Juan Sebastian Veron, Hernan Crespo, Nedved, Poborski, who was a big one as well, Stankovic, Inzaghi, an incredible team back then.
I mean, remember back then it was the league to go to.
Exactly. Maybe
Serie A was the league.
Maybe this is good then for the brand, for Serie A, for Napolitani as well, for them to be able to celebrate their squad and their team. Who leaves? That's the question. So we could wrap up with a little bow on Napoli. Who leaves this Napoli squad? Is Osimhen getting sold?
Better.
Is Maradona getting sold? Who else is on this team that I know that they were talking about? Oh, the Korean center back.
The center back. Yeah, another one linked to us.
Kim Min-jae. Giovanni Simeone as well on that squad. Talking about bringing it back full circle. Talking about having the heavy last name on your back. Giovanni Simeone. I think
I can't pronounce. I think you were about to pronounce his name too. Kavart. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Kvaratskhelia. Yeah. That duo with him and Osimhen has been deadly this whole season for them, and it's crazy. I think if one goes, I think the other goes too.
It's all about longevity with these guys. I don't want it to have more of an awkward pause, because you know it was really awkward trying to go home and seeing a bunch of angry, rabid, spoiled, ungrateful French PSG fans blocking your gates when you're trying to just go come home with the groceries. And that's what the videos had posted online showed, with all of these angry PSG fans demanding that Neymar leave their club. I can't hide my disdain for PSG fans. I'm sorry.
I mean,
So
first of
if you
all,
guys want to address it, I'll
yeah.
hang the
So I
mic.
have two things. One is I thought the Real Madrid fans were toxic, but I don't think they're these fans were
These
ever.
PSG fans they were calling Messi some kind of slurs. I forget what it was. They're following Neymar back. These fans are nuts.
But okay, so my question is, what triggered this? Was it just because he took a flight to Saudi Arabia, Qatar?
Well, for
That
Messi,
started it. That
the
started it.
background for Messi was that he took an unauthorized trip to Saudi Arabia so that he
If
can fulfill promotional and advertising marketing commitments that he had. And because of that, he missed training on Monday.
Yeah, and
Monday.
all of this was under the premise the coach told the team, okay, you guys are allowed 2 days off if we win the whatever prior game, and they didn't. So they were all expected to show up on Monday because they didn't fulfill what the coach asked for
But
them, and he decided, nah, I'm still going.
I mean, okay, but first of all, they've dealt with Neymar for how long now? And I'm not saying Neymar would hop on and just leave, and only when he gets injured when it's his sister's birthday. But the fact that he only left for a day just to work and then came back, why start cursing him out and asking him to leave the team? Are you pissed because he's not doing what he did at Barcelona, which he hasn't done much towards the end because he didn't have a team to back him up? And you're doing this to Neymar. Why? Because you know that Mbappe is leaving? Like, in my opinion, the fans are just screwing themselves over because they're kicking out Messi, they're kicking out Neymar, and Mbappe is dying to leave.
Mbappe,
So
I hope Mbappe leaves.
So imagine them three, which is technically supposed to be their somewhat future. At least for Mbappe, it's supposed to be his future. But imagine them three leaving this window, finding a way to, even if it has to be out of their own. I mean, Messi's walking away because his contract ends, I believe. But Neymar and Mbappe, imagine them paying out their own contracts to be free from PSG.
I mean,
how dumb will these fans look?
Neymar's bumper isn't until 2027. His contract extension is still for another almost 4 years. How they're going to let him go, how much money that's going to cost them is going to be astronomical. And I do see it from the footballing aspect, in that they've completely underappreciated someone who gave them probably, I wouldn't say his prime, I would say some of his best years, to extend that prime that clearly he had when he was at Barcelona and in that trident with Suarez and Messi. But Neymar was still Neymar, despite the antics, #agenda, despite leaving for his sister's birthday every year, #agenda, despite him not being able to actually fulfill his promise that he made when he signed that he's going to win them the Champions League, #agenda. He's given them years of his career, which I feel could have been better suited somewhere else. Because we all knew, at least in my opinion, PSG team has never been cohesive. It's never been successful, and it's never been respected in European competition. They've always fallen short, and that's been the joke. That's been the butt of the joke for the last 5 or so years. And now for him to get, I guess, disrespected, because that's really what it is. Now for him to get disrespected and hounded out by these spoiled ass fans, I almost I do feel bad for Neymar. I think that's crazy. I think that's
I personally think it's fucked up that they're doing that. I mean, I'm not a big Neymar person, but I still consider him one of the greats out there. And I think it's fucked up, but to me, like the whole going to his house, like moving forward, he as much as he's promised to win the Champions League, he hasn't done anything wrong so far, right? He hasn't been suspended or anything like that. So he has to go to work. He has to go train. He has to go. What is his excuse gonna be? Is he gonna say, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable or I don't feel safe going to the stadium or leaving my house, so I'm not gonna go train. I'm not gonna go play. You guys are great." Like, how is this gonna work out from here on out?
Nah, he's leaving. He's leaving, and
He's leaving, but PSG still has games to be played, and he still has a contract.
well, I think the way I see it, we're lucky that it's basically
End of season.
End of season wrapped up, and then I would be very surprised if they don't look at it in the summer and be okay. Let's shake hands. You could go your own way. We'll pay you out of the millions of our coffers from management, and you can go somewhere else. Where that's going to be, I have no idea.
Well, so that's the next question.
He's 31, and he's starting to feel his age because a lot of the games that he's missed recently, the majority of the games he's missed have been through injury now, especially a recurring ankle injury that he's been dealing with for quite a while. So where's he going to end up?
Well, so that's the next question. Okay, so they're asking for two players to leave, which is Messi and Neymar. We're assuming
Messi's
going to Barcelona. And of course, Barcelona has to sell a bunch of players to even be able to bring Messi in. But that's
to Inter Miami.
Well, that'd be nice.
It's gonna be because now Ronaldo is apparently unhappy at Al Nassr, so the three of them, with Neymar included, all Inter Miami.
All three of them. But realistically, so imagine Messi's on his way out, but Neymar still has a couple years, even though he is injury prone. Now, you guys did mention that the rumor is Neymar to Man United. Now, my question to you guys,
I can feel Eric's smile.
My question to you guys is: are you okay with Neymar taking Rashford's place?
I think.
And where do you put Rashford if this is the case?
I think that it's a good time for some Fantasy 15, actually, if we want to just kick out that segment.
We're asking. You don't have to answer today, but come on, the question has to be out there because these are tinfoil hat moments, and these are hypotheticals that there's a possibility in this world, maybe not this time, but in an alternative universe, this is actual possibility that might happen tomorrow.
Yes, in the multiverse.
If the multiverse,
there's a multiverse that exists where Neymar transfers to United. No, I don't want to exist in that multiverse.
But if you were, would you be okay with it?
No. First of all, he's not taking Rashford's spot. Second of all, Ten Hag is going to demand too much, and he's too injury prone to be able to keep up.
I think, and my biased reason, hell no. The objective, which I hope it comes off that way, we see it with him struggling and saying publicly that he needs more from Anthony Martial. And if Martial has played so little games because of injury, he stated that we can't have players out because they're unreliable. In that, I'm paraphrasing, of course. If we can't rely on them to stay fit, if we can't rely on them to stay injury free, we can't rely on them to produce, to deliver. I think it's a shame that Neymar is 31 and that he is injury prone at this stage of his career. Obviously, I don't think that it would.
But how injury prone? Let's say out of the 100% of the games that he could have played, he played 75. That's still good. That's still decent.
I don't think he's made it to that.
You don't think he's played 75% of the games that this season?
I don't think he's made it
in all competitions. You don't think he's playing 75% of the games?
I can tell you that because I remember, and it's all coming back to me. I remember because I'm a bona fide hater, boys. It's a good segue. I'm a bona fide hater, and I remember when I was bringing up my Neymar bashing, in previous seasons, I had brought that up, that he had missed so many games due to injury over his time.
I think it was last season or the season before that you did bring that set up.
Yeah, I remember talking about it. Let's see.
There was like I think
he's not replacing Rashford though, and I think I would agree with that. He's not.
Yeah, no way.
But I mean, hypothetically speaking, if he comes into the team, where does he sit then? Does he take Fernandez's
so
role?
if we're gonna stick to hypothetics,
yeah, this is all because as of right now, it's just hypothetical talk.
Then
there's nothing confirmed and just pretty much
there is a multiverse where, based on what Diego just mentioned about not being able to rely on certain players if they're going to be injury prone, then there's probably a multiverse where Rashford just plays centrally with Neymar on the left. So he's still not.
So you take what?
He's still technically not taking Rashford's spot because he's still on the pitch.
Would you think that you would default to a system like Klopp would be with Firmino as a center forward versus a striker?
No, I think the system will stay the same. I think in
so
this
you would play as a striker.
I think in this multiverse, Rashford will be the striker. Neymar will be on.
But
Neymar
he hasn't
on the left,
been,
Bruno in the middle, and
I think that's the least effective
right.
position for Rashford is a striker.
He does well when called upon, but yeah, we do want him on the left.
I mean, personally, I think Rashford does his most damage when he plays on the left. We've seen him play as a striker, and it hasn't, in my opinion, worked at all. Or he's less effective. He's not a 9. He's not a striker. Okay. I mean, again, it's hypothetical. These are just shit that's out there in the world that people started gossiping about after Neymar got bombarded at home with ungrateful assholes of some, I don't want to say all, some PSG fans that decided to go camp outside his house and basically tell him to leave the team, and in this case the city as well.
All right, so very quickly, just a very, very rough, and obviously don't quote me on this because I'm just looking at the injury history on Transfermarkt, and only counting the ones that are injuries, because there are several instances where he misses like an odd game or two based off of fitness and rest.
Mm-hmm.
But just going back this season alone, 15 games missed. Last season, with adductor problems and an ankle injury, he missed 16 games.
Okay, so it's 15 games out of how many potential games this season?
Probably, if we look at everything all out,
all three. They have 3 competitions technically.
How many have Brighton played? I think it was like 60 or 58, something like that.
You can't go with Brighton because Premier League has one additional competition. They have the FA and they have the Carabao.
Oh yeah, the Carabao. Yeah, you're right.
So if anything, you would have to compare it to the La Liga, that they only have Copa del Rey.
Right.
So what is it? 38 general plus a possibility of an additional 12 for the domestic cup, and thinking that you would go all the way to the finals of a Champions League would be 6, 8, 9.
Hey man, those games hit during competition, and it's over. Like obviously during the league, that's you can wait it out because you can make up that match. And just like in that crucial match with United and the Pink Kits, him being out on the sideline due to injury, and I'm looking at since he joined in 17-18, thigh problems, metatarsal fracture. Obviously, that's a bit different. Adductor problems, the fracture again, ruptured ankle ligament. I'm not counting obviously things like being out for coronavirus, bruised rib, hamstring injury, ankle problems, adductor problems.
Right, out of everything that you just mentioned, how many were there? Was he out for that specific injury while it was for his sister's birthday?
Ooh, when is his sister's birthday? In March?
Something around that. He always misses like two like a leg or a first game or a second game of one of the like
Well, just to,
knockout stages of the Champions League.
just to try to answer your earlier question while he quickly looks that up, I was able to find out that in 94-95, PSG did play 61 games that competition. So
That could be like the
more,
max, right?
so more or less somewhere.
So he basically
60s.
played like around this, hypothetically speaking, this or last season, he played like 60% of the games. 60, between 60 and 65, I want to say. This is just on the top of my head.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
out of the 6 seasons he's been there, it looks like 4 times he's had an injury of some kind that took him out between the months of February and March.
Perfect timing. So yeah, you take those out. you automatically take those out. You can't use those. You can't use those. And you can't use those, and you also have to consider that if you can't use those, you have to put those games back in circulation, which he quote unquote played. So then his 19-16 go to 10. So then if in all it's 70%, so he still produce.
How are you going from 60? What kind of fudged up numbers? Just off of looking on top of it and doing a rough addition of all of those games missed, I'm pretty sure there was a minimum of 80 since he joined PSG. A minimum of 80 matches, and I'll get back on that for the next episode that we record, just so I can fact check myself. Neymar, I think it's unfortunate. Messi, I feel like he has to make a move now, and this is a perfect excuse. Honestly, I think it is the perfect excuse for me. Like, look, they don't appreciate me. They don't tell me that I'm the GOAT. They don't tell me I'm Messi Dios with the 10. I'm leaving to elsewhere where they actually do find my contributions to be worthy. And, even though it is worthy and they are contributions, we can mention that Haaland broke the goal scoring record for the Premier League. So moving forward,
no, please bite your tongue while you speak about Mr. Haaland.
Oh,
I don't care. My prediction was he was going to be. I think it was closer to the 50 in my opinion. Which technically possibly, but I can't remember if I said
if
only Premier.
If he plays against Leeds, he'll be close to 50.
Stop, chill. It's gonna be a tie.
I vaguely remember you saying something about like all competitions.
Was it all competition 50?
I don't remember.
Which he's at 50
I have to look
now.
back, but which were what?
He's at 50 right now. Ish, 50 something. He's over 50. I know that. Either at 50.
I think I said like 50, 52. I have to go back to say to listen to that recording, but I think I had the highest expectation for him. Which is crazy to me. That first season there, he just did what nobody else can do.
Listen, I'm addressing the shamers. I'm addressing the naysayers. I was 10 toes down from day one.
Yes.
He's not gonna break. I don't want the easy bet. That's like the free $20 bet you get on DraftKings and then feeling like you won the freaking lottery. No, it was a gimme. It was obvious that this guy was gonna do something crazy in this league. As far as breaking the goal scoring record and how many goals he's gonna score, that's what we're looking at right now. As the merit from that is that we are looking at, just like how Shearer did it, just like how Andy Cole did it, we're looking at a Premier League historical event happening in our lifetimes, which I think is also something to recognize. I also do want to recognize that later on, when City get dissolved because of all the corruption and all of the shell companies that they put up to get their freaking money and all the funding that they had with fake advertising money from their oil money daddy, and they get stripped of their titles and their records. I do want to recognize the people that had a nice heaping helping of Norwegian sausage, and it wasn't me. Okay, so I don't mind being wrong. I know I'm wrong. I wanted to be wrong because I don't want to look back at myself and be telling grandchildren like, oh yeah, I predicted Haaland to break the goal scoring record. Isn't that great? No, I'm a United fan. I bleed red through and through. The one thing that we got to look at though, and this is something that Peter Drury was talking about with Lee Dixon, is a very, very old goal scoring record that pales beyond the history of the Premier League. And this is going to be I'm going to build a nice little, what is it? Un altarcito, a little altar of venerance for Dixie Dean, the great Dixie Dean of Everton, who I've followed since my childhood days. And
He's your
in
day
the
one. He's your
year
day one.
in the season 1920, no, I'm kidding. In the season between 1927 and 28, he scored a ridiculous 63 goals in a single season for the Evertonians. Will Haaland, here's the next question. Will Haaland break that?
Not this season.
No, obviously not.
Was
this
that
season.
was that total competition or just Premier League?
It's just purely though. Back then it wasn't
Premiership, right?
just purely domestic league
How many
competition.
teams were there at the time of that league?
A lot
One.
more.
One.
tell
He's just scoring. He's just scoring it on an empty
No,
net.
he said a lot more. So instead of being 20, it could have been 45.
So they played 39 league games. Dixie Dean set the record, and he had scored
What is that?
at
Almost
63.
3 goals a match.
Yeah, the all-time English record for most goals in a season, and this is across all competitions. 63 in the league, 60. But I'm going with 63 because it puts it further away from Holland. I don't want him to break it. So Dixie Dean, that's the next benchmark.
But that's the closest one he has. You should keep it as league only because he's at 50 already. He only needs 13 more goals to be able to break it or tie it. But if you stick it to the league one, that is 25 goals that he has to score.
Okay, so
if he plays against Leeds, he might do.
Hey man, you guys, I don't mind taking pseudo heat. Shout out to the engagement we got on our previous podcast clip. I was getting some of the haters showing up, but shout out to you guys for the engagement. That's what we want to hear. That's what we want to see. That's what we want to live for, is to get your opinions and your voice heard on the bench. So make sure that when you do hear this episode, you give a visit to our Instagram, our Twitter, this YouTube channel. If you're watching the video, the likes, the comments, the engagement, that's what we're looking for. We're still waiting. It's been 6 consecutive losses, Chelsea fans, and we're waiting for you to come up and defend your boy, defend your legend. Some of the legends that were actually worth mentioning, though, so we can wrap up this segment, getting to Fantasy 15, so we could finish up the episode. John Terry and Rio Ferdinand getting inducted to the Premier League Hall of Fame this week. An absolute recognition for these two greats. I think it's obviously well deserved, well merited. Talking about, I think it was Neville and Carragher that were speaking about the way that Terry handled shutting down the center back role. Rio Ferdinand being among the first to be comfortable on the ball. With not just scoring goals, but being able to distribute well. Another facet for center backs that has become part of the modern game, a necessity for a center back to have a good 2 feet on the ball. That's something that's important for them. And I think that wraps up our episode. Before we get into Fantasy 15 and our predictions, is there anything before we move on that you guys have on your minds in terms of the league, at least in terms of the Prem? It's almost over, guys. Like that's it. I'm gonna get that postseason blues, and I'm not looking forward to it. We do have a few things coming up in the summer, but I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're already talking about with Eric and Dimmy, I believe, to try to make it. Eric and I want to go to both Arsenal games. I think Dimmy's just gonna make the one. So traveling is definitely on our cards, and just going to the ones that are local too, man. I know that we are planning on doing a couple of the ones that would be taking place in the Red Bull Arena. So hopefully that's something to look forward to, at least in the summertime. But right now, there's still enough football to go around, at least to keep us busy for the next month.
Let's hope so. We're also looking forward to the Women's World Cup. There's some movement there with the English national team losing several of their stars, Frank Kirby, Leah Williamson. There was something I want to bring up for next recording. There was an interesting article I was reading about a lot of these female footballers are getting ACL injuries. Like the most recurring one is ACL tears, and there have been 2 in the last month for very important players on their national sides. So I think that's going to be an interesting topic to look a little bit deeper into. Maybe I can get some more information on that. But Fantasy 15 Gats, we can get into it. It is game week 35. It's almost over. People, it's almost over. The marathon is now turning into a last stretch sprint. So we have some notes for you. We have some tips. We have some recommendations for your team, a nice little watch list update, some numbers in terms of transfers this week, and what you can do with your teams. So, Gats, can you kick it off for our fantasy 15 segment or less?
Let's do it. Let's get right into it. So quick turnaround this time around. I know we had mentioned it, the past couple of recordings, we did have a break, this time around with how quick the turnaround was, but it is back. We're going for 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Saturday morning is the deadline. So that is not a lot of time to recover from this past game week, which was pretty crazy in its own right. But let's take a look real quick at how quickly managers have been moving things in and out. So some of the top transfers in already for this upcoming game week. We have Callum Wilson leading the line at 130,000. Marcus Rashford coming in second at 105. Estupinian at 88,000. Martin Odegaard after having a great game coming in with 79,000 transfers in. And John Stones for Manchester City running it out with 65,000 transfers in. Some of the top transfers out really quickly. Watkins, unfortunately, Villa don't have too favorable of a fixture schedule, so he leads the line, transfers out. Saka, also on this list. Pereira, unfortunately, hopefully he recovers soon, but he's donezo. So
Yeah,
81,000
broken.
managers. Yeah, something broken. So unfortunately, that's we'll see what happens with Fulham, but they are getting Mitrovic back, I think, the next week or the week after. So they'll be all right. Ivan Toney and Kevin De Bruyne, unfortunately, rounding out the list of some top transfers out. So as we have mentioned already the past couple of weeks, there has been a pretty heavy shift in the template to pretty much focus solely on the teams that have the most games left to play, being Manchester City, Manchester United, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Brighton. So a lot of people are already stacked on most of the players from these teams. However, if you are still amongst the group of people that are still chasing, whether it's in your mini leagues or if you're trying to get a higher rank overall than you did last season, don't be afraid to go with some differential picks within those teams themselves. So just to give you some quick examples, if you're looking at Newcastle, you can still go for the likes of Joe Ellington, Murphy, or even Willock as well. Those are going to be huge differentials on a Newcastle team that's still fighting for top four. Over to Liverpool, you could still pick up the likes of Luis Diaz, even Konate, the likes of Allison if you need someone in goal. Some pretty good options there. For United, hopefully he stays fit and he's no longer made of glass, but Tony Gloves, Anthony Martial, you can look at as a differential. Probably going to get a lot of stick for this upcoming name, but it does not matter. Anthony, he did have a pretty good game today. He just couldn't find the back of the net again, unfortunately, but he's still someone that you want to keep your eye on. And even Dallo as well. I mean, with Shaw filling in at center back, he seems to be taking that left back role, so he's another one that you want to keep an eye on. City, unfortunately, is just the one enigma that no one just seems to know who's going to play when. But again, that's probably the biggest team of differentials that you can go on, just because you never know who's going to play. But you can look at Mahrez. Foden is back healthy. He scored this past game as well, and sort of Julian Alvarez as well. There's still a lot of talk of is Haaland going to play this next game or not. So hey, if you want to take a risk and go for Alvarez, worst case he comes off the bench and he's a great striker in his own right. And last but not least, for a Brighton team, you can look at the likes of Dunk in defense, Danny Welbeck, and New Boy and CISO as well, to give you a little bit more of an edge in your mini leagues. So Diego, you want to go quickly over this watch list and our captaincy?
Yeah, the watch list update, where we gave you a full list on the last recording. This is just an update specifically to mention players that we've added or players that we've dropped. I think it's worth mentioning that despite their fixture run, Brighton have been looking incredible with Jason Steele. I think Jason Steele is someone that you want to look at. He's relatively cheap. Yes, there was a benefit with having two midfielders of the Brighton team in your squad. But looking at the recent benchings and movings around that De Zerbi has been tinkering with, McAllister, March, Gross, Mitoma, all in basically switching on their minutes, I think it could be beneficial to give Steele a look. And he frees up very, very crucial funds for the last final game weeks if you want to be able to stack up on your squads. David De Gea as well. The heartbreaker of the penalty, yes, but it would have been another clean sheet. He's two games above the next goalie for the Golden Glove this season. He makes a decent amount of saves. I believe he had 6 against Brighton today. Jason Steele was recorded with 5. And I hope I'm not mistaking that, but still, if you want to look at De Gea and you don't have him, I think he's worth putting up on our watch list. Adding on to the defenders, Nathan Ake back from injury. A lot of people had shipped him out after bringing him in, and he was injured. Then they shipped him out. He came back and he scored his goal during the game during the makeup game this midweek. So we saw him. It was against West Ham that he got his goal. Another pair of defenders that I would also look at are the 2 Brighton ones. A lot of people do have a Estupiñán on their squads simply because he was showing a lot of people were looking at Estupiñán on their squad simply because he was showing the attacking prowess. But I think Duncan Webster are worth looking at. Luke Shaw, which Gat had mentioned, if you haven't brought him in, I think he's worth putting on the watch list. Some drops, we have Ben White and Zinchenko. I think that despite this new Polish defender coming into the Arsenal squad, the fact that we're not sure that he's going to be starting now consistently, giving that odd goal, I don't know if anyone else had watched the game out of us here, but Ramsdale was absolutely livid with conceding that goal against Madueke. I know he directed a lot of that irate emotion towards Zinchenko and I think someone else that was in the back line. I feel like for now, it may be beneficial just to stay away from the Arsenal defenders. It can be a little bit ugly, I guess, for them to finish out the rest of the season. So maybe looking at defenders like Dunk, like a Webster, who have more fixtures to make up, that could be a huge upside for your team. Adding on to the midfielders, Luis Diaz, making his return back into the Liverpool squad. He looks lively. He's quick. He's getting fouled a lot. He's getting into the box a lot. And I think him being back with Jota kind of back and forth on what his fitness is going to be, I think that's going to be a beneficial beneficial player to look at and to have on the watch list moving forward. A complete left field watch list add is Jefferson Lerma from Bournemouth. I think Philip Billing was someone that Bournemouth was relying on for goals, but after his brace, rather than looking at it from chasing points, he's more of a player that's on there just because of the position that Bournemouth are in. They have games coming up that they can take to the next team, and they have Chelsea. So we already know that Chelsea have been looking very weak. They don't look confident at all. They look, I would probably even say they look almost anticipating something going wrong. I feel like Bournemouth can be able to capitalize on that. And so Lerma could be a big differential to have as an add onto our watch list. 2 more names into the midfielders, Odegaard and Zaha. Odegaard simply because I think he showed that Martinelli being taken off early and Jesus having some difficulty, Saka going through a slump after performing fantastic for the majority of the season. I think maybe relying on this creator in the midfield, this playmaker, is going to be something that Arsenal are going to want to rely on. And then Will Zaha flagged again for injury, which is the biggest headache. But if he can stay fit, I think he adds a very different facet or different angle of lethality to this Crystal Palace side. That's just doing incredible under Roy Hodgson. I think it's absolutely adorable. Very respectable, but I think it's adorable that Roy Hodgson is doing so well. He had a few pitch touches on the touchline with a ball that came to him that was like deflected, and he ended up trying to control it, and then he kind of like mistouched it, and then he just went like whatever, and he was just having fun with it. I think I have a very, very deep respect for Roy Hodgson. But looking at some of the drops for the midfielders, Pereira, like we had mentioned, due to his injury, and Martinelli, who used to be someone that was nailed on and cheap. I think Arteta trying to find some options for his midfield. He's going to be dropped for the time being. Some adds onto the forwards, and Ciso, extremely cheap. He started and played the entire 90, if I'm not mistaken, for Brighton today. He plays well off of Welbeck. He had some good shots. Obviously, he's young. He's a teen. He's very rough around the edges, but especially for games that Brighton can make some changes, they're going to be able to capitalize on that. Solanke with Bournemouth, Alvarez with Man City due to their rotation. And then just because we didn't have him last week, And I think it was obviously because it wasn't anticipated that he would come on and score a brace as a substitute. Callum Wilson filling out the watch list update. Captaincy, though, we're going to have to pay attention to some of the reports on what City are going to do. Haaland is obviously the first name on that sheet for the captain's armband. Looking out for Pep's presser tomorrow to see if there's any indication if Haaland might be rested or if he might start. Yes, it's Leeds, and he could probably do a lot with even a 20 or 30-minute cameo. But there's some risk there. If you want to avoid that, you can look at some of the Brighton boys. I think Mitoma is probably the safest. Solly March coming back on as a sub. I think McAllister was a very, very fortuitous penalty that fantasy managers were given today. Gross seems to have lost a bit of his minutes over these last two games. But again, whoever you have for Brighton, I think it's fair to have them on your captaincy armband choice. And then there is, of course, Mo Salah, who plays at home to Brighton. The benefit for Brighton, play at home to Brentford. The benefit for Brighton I'm looking at is that they play at home to Everton. So if you do happen to gamble on the person who plays the longest amount of minutes for that match against Everton, I think you could win out pretty big. And some slight differentials, Guy, if you want to round those out.
Yeah, so we are going to go with our buddy Ivan Phoney. He seems to be ticking along quite nicely. And yes, even though he will be playing at Anfield, we have seen that Liverpool can still concede the odd goal or two or three. And Brentford are a team that they can shut teams down if they really wanted to. So he's definitely an option. To piggyback off of the Haaland situation, if we do get some kind of news that he might not be starting and that he might be rested, then Alvarez is a great pick. He seems to be turning up anytime he is called upon. So that is great news in that regards. Kane is home to Palace. Kane has been the one all season that just keeps ticking along. If Haaland was not in the Prem, Kane probably would have taken over as the quote unquote perma captain for the season. Unfortunately, because of Haaland, Kane is also a differential in his own right. Just he's not that highly owned this season, which is nuts. And then last but not least, the Newcastle usual suspects can also be slight differentials this week. So Trippier, Callum Wilson, or even Isak, they are home to Arsenal. That is going to be hopefully a thrilling game, but we have seen that St. James Park is quite a tough place to go to. But hopefully there's some goals in it to help with that. So those are our captaincy choices for this week.
And one of the benefits that you could have from rolling is that we have another double coming up in 36, and then another double that follows in 37 for specific players, which Gat had mentioned earlier in the selection of players to focus on from specific teams. If you're able to do it, and I think it would be a great benefit, disclaimer, is to roll the transfer, because then now you can focus on making two transfers and even taking a hit for just a -4 and build up your squad for this double game week 36 that we still have left, which involves some of the power teams or power players from these teams, such as City, Liverpool, United, and Brighton. And just so that we can give him his tiny little boost to his ego, Gat is still absolutely destroying everybody who's not playing in our draft league. And it looks like the update to the draft league is Gat in first, myself in second, Nick in third, Marco in fourth, Josue in fifth, and Eric in sixth place. Gat has literally an 11-point lead with 4 games left to go. So it is mathematically now impossible, even if I were to win every single game and forget to lose every single game. I don't think it's enough. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. The only way that it would happen, I would need to beat Gat in game week 37 and for Gat to lose every single match since then. We're very close.
Which you
We're
never
very
know. You never know. I mean, I lost the past 3 games in a row because of luck.
multiverse.
No shot. Did you really lose the last 3? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you lost to Marco.
Josue, Nick, and you, Marco, because you guys got from the beginning, from day one, you guys had all these good players that returned. You, Marco, had Gross come off the bench for you with a 14-pointer because you still had I was looking at it earlier. One of your players just didn't play this week. So,
I mean, I have
and then
Collins and Henry
Nick
on
had
my
Holland
team.
last week, and he returned big time, so that screwed me over. And I forget who Josue had. So it
Auto
was
sub
yeah,
for Joao Felix.
so
Auto sub.
it is what it is. I'm still 11
Okay,
points
so
ahead.
there's hope. There's hope. Let me. No, I'm kidding.
I'm gonna transfer you all my players, Diego, right now. Give me a second.
Listen. Gat has 73 points. I have 62. There's 12 points left to go. It's an 11-point gap. I need to win every single one, and Gat needs to lose every single one. That's the only multiverse that exists in which I turn up as champion of our draft league. But it's all right. There's still one game that we are participating in, and that is our prediction game among us on the bench warmers. Gats, do you have the 3 games that we're going to predict for this weekend?
Yes. So first, which I thought was going to be pretty cool one to predict just because of where they are on the table, tied on points. Bournemouth at home to Chelsea. Diego, what do you think? Tied on points, 39 points, 9 off of relegation, or 10, one of the two.
9.
Chelsea in this conversation.
2-0 Bournemouth, straight up. 2-0 Bournemouth. I want the 007 memes. I want this to be a miserable season for Chelsea. Chelsea fans just need a humbling. I'm looking at some stats here that Bournemouth have won 4 of their last 11 meetings, even though 3 of them have been away. However, Chelsea have lost 3 of their last 6 against Bournemouth. And they did win the reverse fixture at Stamford Bridge 2-0 this season. And they've only completed the Premier League double over Bournemouth back in 2016-17. So they haven't been able to beat Bournemouth both away and home in the Prem since then. I think there's a good shot. So I'm going 2-0 Bournemouth. I don't think Chelsea has the wherewithal to score. I'm going to bank all of it on the relegation team hustle.
Marco, what do you say?
2-1 Bournemouth, and the 1 is going to come in. So Chelsea's going to score first. It's going to give them the hope, and they're going to end up losing the hope towards the end of the game.
Nice. I like it. Well, I also am going to agree with Diego and go 2-0 to Bournemouth. Next up, probably and hopefully one of the game of this upcoming week. Hopefully a game of the season contender, depending on what happens. Newcastle at home to Arsenal. Marco, let's start with you this time. I know which side you're probably going to pick, but let's.
Yeah, this is a tricky one because when we first faced them off, they stopped us, but we stopped them. I know it's a tie. I believe, if I'm mistaken, it was a 0-0 tie.
Yeah, it was 0-0.
Arsenal have failed to score in their last 2 Premier League meetings against Newcastle, but they scored at least once in their previous 18 before that for 40 goals in total. As far as their head-to-head, in the last 10 matches, which is across 5 years, the record is 8 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss for Arsenal against Newcastle. They have very heavily in a way beaten them. Newcastle won this fixture exactly at home, 2-0 last season. But since then, it's been all Arsenal, especially with clean sheets, beating them 3-0 and 2-0 respectively in the 2020-21 season. I know you always throw stats outside of the window, but
the stats are in your favor, Marco. What do you think?
All in your favor.
And still throwing them out. 2-0 Arsenal.
It's a big ask.
I want, and I know we're gonna accomplish the clean sheet.
What do you think, Diego?
They don't have St. Maxi. I don't know what they're going to do in terms of Isak and Wilson. I think Wilson just has a scoring bug right now. to no discredit to the Arsenal backline, obviously. I think it's going to be probably. I'm going 2-1 Arsenal. I'm going 2-1 Arsenal. It's Newcastle definitely aren't going to be able to keep them out. It would be hilarious because fantasy-wise, they haven't kept a goddamn clean sheet in like the last 6 games or something like that. It would be so hilarious, but I don't think so. I think that Arsenal have found some alternatives in terms of their forward line with Trossard and Martinelli, Jesus, Saka. The fact that Odegaard, if this Jakub guy starts with Gabriel, which I'm not sure if Gabriel was just taken off for precaution or injury last game because he was taken off
precautionary. There's always that possibility that he might not be able to play it, but I believe it was precautionary. He didn't actually.
So anyway,
on the safe side.
I won't elaborate anymore. 2-1 Arsenal.
So I mean, as much as I want to keep going all season, or at least most of the season, I've been giving Arsenal the victory every time these predictions come around. But I think this time around, St. James is just a different animal. But I don't think they're going to lose. I think it's going to be a thriller game of the season contender, 3-3.
A 3-3 draw? What the?
3-3. Listen, Newcastle still aren't secured in top 4, and Arsenal are still fighting for the title. I think they're both gonna just go at each other, which would be a hell of a match.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair. Hey, Marco, you can't give up the dream. It's not over until the fat lady sings. All right, you can't.
It's about right.
You know, for me personally, I would give more credit to an Arsenal fan who believed till the very end than someone that 4 games left in the season. Oh, we lost. We failed. It's over. Yeah, congratulations, City. No, you're a supporter, not a cheerleader that just happens to show up when the team's doing good.
I know. I mean, there's the realistic side and the hopeful side. The hopeful side is hoping.
Abandon realism. You're not getting paid for these opinions, Marco. Abandon it. Okay, I did it. Fuck Holland, and I'm sitting comfortably in my little gamer chair, knowing that in my little United heart, I remain true to my Red Devils. But anyway, 3-3. That would be incredible.
It would.
That's not gonna happen, but
we'll see. So
multiverse, next game.
To wrap up these predictions and wrap up this episode as well, a nice little. This is a great season to be a neutral because there's something to fight for everywhere along the table. So let's go a little bit down. 18th versus 20th, both still mathematically in it to not get relegated. Forest at home to Saints. What are we thinking, Diego? Let's start with you.
I'm gonna go 1-0 Forest. They won the reverse fixture. There's not much history between these two teams in the Premier League. Literally just that game right now coming up as far as numbers wise. I would like to think that maybe Southampton could score or show something, but since that game against Arsenal, they've only scored 2 goals for the entire month of April outside of Arsenal. They scored 1 goal against City in a 4-1 loss, and they scored 1 goal against Newcastle in a 3-1 loss, which was the early one that wiped out their damn clean sheet, their damn clean sheet. So I think, although I see Forest as a modern day QPR, just like a Frankenstein team with a bunch of random players. But I think it's going to be 1-0 Forest at home. Dean Henderson out for the season, I read, but that's not a problem. Jesus Navas holding it down. 1-0 Forest.
Marco, what do you say?
Oh boy.
He sounded like the the Arabic commentator after they score the goal.
I just don't want Forest to win.
You don't want Forest to win.
I don't want, because Forest is the contender for my number 2.
Oh, for Leeds to stay up. For Leeds to stay up, Forest needs to go down.
So that's a fight, right? And I kind.
Oh, dude, I hope that game's a dogfight. I
want it to be, bro, but
Just give it to him. Give it to him. Hope.
They have the same amount
Realism.
of negative goals, 32.
Yeah, both same goal differential, despite being like what 6 points away.
6 points difference, yes. 3-2 Southampton.
God
Jesus,
damn.
that's a game. That's a nice way to end your Monday, since this is a 3 o'clock Eastern Monday game.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a dogfight. I think, unfortunately, for Marco and his Leeds team, Forest are just better at home than they are away this season. But Saints, I do think, will get a goal, 2-1 Forest, to wrap up our predictions.
2-1 Forest. That's we'll have an update for all of these results that we've been predicting. I think the best way to look at it is as a cumulative, since we've been keeping track, just to see who ends up being the ultimate winner for the remainder of the season. I want to thank you guys, Marco and John, aka Gats, for being on this recording. Thank you to everyone who took their time to listen to us just rant and banter and comment on all of the happenings in the Premier League and some around the footballing world. We'll be back next week, and hopefully we get Eric, because you know what, I've been missing Eric on the podcast since things started getting a little bit shaky for Arsenal. Not that has anything to do with it, so I want to make that clear. I'm just saying that it would be.
I'm gonna clip that just with that part, without it.
I feel like I'm gonna have to start saying things with like the word of the next sentence in between the previous two.
Automatically on the spot.
So
no punctuations.
So it's not that Eric, I don't think that is missing because come back, and it's not because of Arsenal. That's not what I'm saying. It is what I'm saying. I'm just trying to mix it up as much as possible so that way you're not able to cut it.
You already said it, so you're screwed.
And make it seem like I said something else. But Spurs, we also want Josue back. Liverpool with Nico, Chelsea fans putting it out there. Nice little satellite for you guys to receive the bat signal for City fans. How they feel about Haaland,
if they exist.
You know, the commentators had said it's extremely quiet in here. There was a TalkSport article. I know TalkSport is completely toxic, being spewed online, but specifically for this, it was great because they had put out a write-up on Guardiola was caught telling the fans to basically be louder, because even the commentators are like, it is exceptionally quiet in here. Like right I think it was like around like the 30th or 40th minute that they had mentioned that. But either way, whatever. City fans, if you exist, we want to hear from you. Anyone else in the relegation zone, fighting for Europe, fighting for the title, we want your voice to be heard on the bench. And always remember, we are the bench warmers. This is the bench with the voice, where the bench is always warm. Peace, everybody.